You ever get that feeling that your life is too good to be true? Yeah, that was me. 2 years into marriage with Ellie, the woman everybody told me I lucked out landing and living in a modern loft with floor-to-ceiling windows and an espresso machine I didn't even know how to operate. Ellie was one of those hyper-driven types. Marketing VP at some startup that sold AI-powered skincare, if you can believe that's a thing. She worked long hours, loved bar classes and running marathons for charity, and was religious about tracking every molecule her body produced. Me? I'm a software developer. I sit. I type. I drink too much cold brew and have strong opinions about semicolons. Anyway, Ellie was obsessed with her health data. Recently, she'd bought this $400 smart ring, titanium, water-resistant, synced to her phone, promised to monitor sleep stages, heart rate, and blood oxygen with lab accuracy. She wouldn't shut up about it. It's going to optimize my REM cycles. I can predict my ovulation down to the minute. I'll know if I'm stressed before I feel stressed. Neat. I figured it was just another fad like her kombucha phase. But one night, purely out of boredom, mind you, I noticed her Ring app was linked to our shared fitness account. Now here's the kicker. I'm the one who set up our home network, our cloud storage, and all our sync devices. Ellie had no clue. She assumed shared meant just her and her trainer. Cute. The first real red flag hit me on a random Tuesday. I'd pulled an all-nighter debugging a client app and couldn't sleep, so I flipped through our synced fitness dashboard on my phone. That's when I noticed it, a heart rate spike. No, a mountain, at 2:38 a.m., sustained for about 45 minutes. According to her calendar, she'd been sleeping at home. I remembered because she'd texted me earlier, exhausted babe. Turning in early. Love you. We'd even kissed goodnight. I slept in the guest room that night to avoid waking her when I came to bed late. At first, I told myself it was probably a bug. These devices mess up all the time, right? So I scrolled back. And that's when my stomach flipped. Sunday night. Thursday before that. The previous Friday. Every time I had late nights or overnight work trips, Ellie's heart rate chart looked like a roller coaster after midnight. 120 BPM. 140 BPM. Spikes. Peaks. All-night afterglow curves. No, I'm not a moron. I've seen heart rate charts during workouts, marathons, heck, even panic attacks. But this was something else. These weren't 5-minute bursts. These were prolonged sessions. Consistent. Rhythmic. And always on nights she claimed to be alone. I didn't sleep a wink. I lay there staring at the ceiling thinking, is she cheating? With who? How? Why now? Ellie had never struck me as the cheating type. Hyper-competitive? Yes. Self-absorbed? Sometimes. But she'd always been upfront about loyalty being her #1 value. We'd built the entire relationship on trust, or so I thought. The next morning, I made eggs. She waltzed in, glowing. Morning, love, she said, voice bright. Morning, I replied flatly, barely looking up. She was humming while checking her phone. I watched her thumb flick across the calendar app, rapidly adding blocks labeled Client Sync and Team Brainstorm. Real vague stuff. I filed that away. Now I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I confront her right there? You don't. That's amateur hour. You confront a cheater too soon, they'll spin a story you can't disprove. No, you gather intel. You build your case. You make it ironclad. So I did what any self-respecting nerd would do. I cross-referenced everything. I spent the next 2 weeks quietly syncing every calendar entry, Ring data point, and home Wi-Fi log into a private spreadsheet. I ran time correlations. I even used an old script to cross-match her GPS check-ins from her phone. She always forgot that I'd set up our cloud backup. It didn't take long to zero in on a pattern. One name kept popping up in her calendar on those spike nights. Strategy Offsite, Jeff M. Jeff. Mid-30s. Single. VP of Sales. I'd met him once at a launch party, perfectly average guy except for the way he looked at Ellie when he thought I wasn't watching. I dug deeper. Slack messages synced from her laptop backups. Hotel reservations. Uber receipts. Boom. On 2 spike nights, she'd billed the company for late night, rides home, both times dropping her off at a boutique hotel downtown, not our loft. I was practically shaking. The data was right there in black and white. My perfect, health-optimized wife was burning more calories in hotel rooms with Jeff than in half her marathons. And here's the kicker. Her company's annual team-building retreat was next weekend. At a ski resort. 3 nights. Spouses invited. Guess who got a personal invitation from Ellie? Babe, it'll be fun. Plus, you can finally meet everyone. Oh, I was coming. I was absolutely coming. And I had a little presentation to prepare. I'll be honest, I don't normally do petty. Not my thing. I'm the type of guy who unplugs USBs properly and waits for green lights before crossing the street. But this wasn't petty. This was justice. I had the proof, the timeline, the receipts. All I needed now was the right way to deploy them. Ellie, meanwhile, was blissfully unaware. Or so she thought. She was prancing around the loft humming 90s R&B and packing for the company retreat like she was about to win an Oscar. "Are you sure you want to come this weekend?" she asked, eyes wide and fake sweet. "Of course," I said. "Wouldn't miss it." She blinked, just for a fraction of a second. That was the first crack. Now, let me explain something about this retreat. It wasn't some rustic cabin thing. No, her company was flush with VC money, so they booked a luxury ski resort, the kind of place with heated pools and bathrobes that cost more than my winter coat. 3 days. Team-building workshops. Fancy dinners. Group hikes. Oh, and plenty of networking after dark, as her colleagues like to call it. I spent the days leading up to it prepping my little surprise. First, I exported her smart ring data for the past 6 weeks. Luckily, the vendor allowed CSV exports. I wrote a quick Python script to plot heart rate versus time, overlaying it with her calendar events and known nights out. The result? Glorious. Color-coded graphs showing client sync and strategy offsite entries perfectly aligned with heart rate spikes between midnight and 3 a.m. Second, I dug into my old archives and found photos from the company launch party 6 months ago, one that Ellie had dragged me to. Buried in those pics was a beautiful candid shot, Jeff leaning in way too close to Ellie at the bar while she smiled like a schoolgirl. Perfect. The human face of the data. Lastly, I prepared a PowerPoint deck. I know. So cliché. But nothing says corporate truth bomb like a clean deck with Helvetica fonts and pretty graphs. Title slide. Optimizing Wellness, a case study. That Friday morning, we drove up to the resort together. The mood in the car was weird. Ellie was chirpy on the surface, but kept darting glances at me like she was trying to read a foreign language. "You seem quiet," she said. "Just thinking about your presentation tomorrow," I replied. "Should be enlightening." She smiled tightly. "Yeah, should be." When we checked into the hotel, they gave us a suite, king bed, balcony, mountain view. I could practically hear Ellie's brain buzzing. She excused herself almost immediately to go check in with the team. Translation: scope out Jeff. I gave it about an hour, then wandered down to the lounge. Sure enough, there she was, seated cozily at the far corner of the bar, laughing at something Jeff was saying. His hand rested just a little too long on her shoulder. I snapped a casual photo from a distance and went back to the room. Later that night, at dinner, Ellie was all sugar and light, introducing me to everyone like the doting wife. Jeff shook my hand, clammy grip, weak smile, and said, "We've heard so much about you." I bet. The schedule for the next day included a session called Data-Driven Living, Enhancing Wellness in the Workplace, one of Ellie's pet projects. That's when inspiration struck. After dinner, while Ellie was off at team drinks, I paid a visit to the event organizer, a young guy named Mark who ran the AV setup. "Hey," I said, casual as could be. Small change to the morning session. Ellie asked me to add a few slides to the wellness talk. "Mind if I email them to you?" He didn't blink. "Sure thing. Just send him by 7 a.m. Done. The next morning, I got up early, grabbed a coffee, and fired off my deck. Subject line: final slides for wellness session per Ellie. At 9 a.m., the ballroom was packed. About 150 employees, a handful of spouses, and crucially, Jeff's wife, Laura. Yes, I'd done a little backgrounding after seeing his name pop up so often. Turns out, Jeff wasn't single after all. He was married. And guess who had shown up last minute to join him for the weekend? Laura. Petite, sharp-eyed, and currently seated 3 rows from the front. Ellie kicked off the session with her usual sparkle. "We're all about data-driven decisions," she said. "And today, we're looking at how wellness tracking can optimize performance." She breezed through a few slides on sleep quality and HRV trends, then said, "And now, my husband will share a quick case study on tracking progress over time." She winked at me. I smiled back, cool as ice. I walked up to the podium, plugged in the clicker, and cleared my throat. "Thanks, Ellie. I thought it might be fun to share a real-world example of how wearable data can reveal hidden patterns, sometimes surprising ones." First slide, a simple heart rate chart. Here we see an individual's heart rate over several weeks. Next slide, the same chart with calendar overlays. Notice the correlation between heart rate spikes and certain calendar events labeled as client sync and strategy offsite. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Next slide, heart rate averages by time of night. Interestingly, these spikes consistently occur between 2 and 3 a.m., suggesting a rather vigorous activity pattern. Nervous laughter now. Eyes darting around. I smiled. Of course, context matters. For comparison, here's a typical resting night. No spikes. Final slide, the photo from 6 months ago. Jeff and Ellie at the bar, heads close, smiling. I let it hang there. The room went dead silent. Then, and this is where it gets good, Laura stood up. Her chair screeched across the floor. She looked at Jeff, then at Ellie, and said loudly, "I knew it." Gasps. Head swiveling. Jeff's face went ghost white. Ellie looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. I calmly set down the clicker and said, "Data doesn't lie. Thank you," and walked off the stage. Ellie didn't follow. Neither did Jeff. Laura stormed out. The room buzzed like a kick beehive. Back in our suite, I packed my bag. Ellie burst in 20 minutes later, red-faced and trembling. You planned this." I zipped my suitcase. "Of course I did. You ruined me," she shrieked. I picked up my keys. "No, Ellie, you ruined yourself. I just visualized the data." And with that, I walked out, leaving her and her overpriced ring behind. You know that old saying about revenge being a dish best served cold? Turns out, if you serve it publicly with a projector and a live audience, it's downright delicious. I drove home from the retreat grinning like a lunatic. Windows down. Playlist on full blast. Ellie hadn't even tried to call me. Not yet. By the time I hit the city limits, my phone buzzed. 1 missed call. Then 3. Then 7. I let them pile up. There was no apology coming that could patch this mess. When I got back to her loft, it felt different. Like I'd scrubbed the place of one giant lie. The toothbrushes, her shoes by the door, the stack of Pilates class flyers on the counter, all looked cheap now. Plastic. Pretend. I made one call. My buddy Greg, divorce lawyer. We've been friends since college. "Hey Greg," I said. "Time to cash in that favor." "You ready to go nuclear?" he asked. "Already launched," I replied. By Sunday afternoon, Ellie still hadn't come home. Not surprising. I imagined her huddled somewhere, frantically damage controlling with HR and the company PR team. Monday morning, I worked from home. Around 10 a.m., the door opened. Ellie. She looked wrecked. Puffy eyes. No makeup. Hair in a limp ponytail. She stood there, suitcase still in the hall, like a lost child. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice hoarse. I looked up from my laptop. "Sure. Why not?" She sat down, folded her hands, and started to cry. I waited. Finally, between gasps, she choked out, "I'm so sorry. I messed up. I never wanted to hurt you. It just happened." There it was. The classic line. It just happened. I sipped my coffee. "Ellie, you trained for a half marathon with less planning than this affair." She winced. "You booked hotel rooms. You synced calendars. You scheduled rides. This was project-managed cheating." "I know," she whispered. "And the part that really impresses me," I continued, voice cool, "is that you thought you could maintain a double life in a digital age. Every damn thing you do is time-stamped." She covered her face. I felt trapped. Stressed. Jeff was easy. I almost laughed. Jeff was easy. Got it. And what was I? The loyal idiot who paid the rent while you burned calories downtown. She sobbed harder. I leaned back. "Here's what's going to happen. Greg will send you papers this week. I expect your signature promptly." Her head snapped up. "Divorce?" "Yes, Ellie. You broke the contract. But can't we talk about this?" I stood. "No. I presented about this. In front of your colleagues. We're well past the talking phase." She looked shattered. I almost felt a flicker of pity, almost. Then I remembered the heart rate charts, the Uber receipts, the smug grin Jeff wore at that bar. No pity left. She wiped her eyes and said, "I'll fight you on this. I want the loft." I smiled. "By all means. Just remember, we have cloud backups. And discovery is a beautiful thing." Her mouth opened, closed. She knew exactly what that meant. Every Slack DM, every calendar entry, every expense report, all neatly archived. I picked up my laptop and headed for the door. "Take your time packing," I said. "I'll be staying at a friend's." Her voice followed me, small and desperate. "Please. I still love you." I paused. You loved the idea of me. The reality bored you. And with that, I left. For the next week, my phone was a circus. HR emails, apology texts, one voicemail from Jeff's lawyer, believe it or not, hinting at a defamation claim. Cute. Greg handled that one swiftly. Tell your client that truth is an absolute defense, he replied. We have the data. Radio silence after that. Word spread fast in Ellie's company. By Friday, she was on voluntary leave. Jeff, meanwhile, was exploring new opportunities. Translation: fired. And me? I was sipping bourbon at Greg's place, watching the fireworks unfold. Then came the twist. Saturday morning, I got a LinkedIn message from Laura. Yes, Jeff's wife. Subject line: thank you. Her message was simple. I've suspected for months. You gave me the proof I needed. I've filed for divorce. If you ever want to grab coffee and compare war stories, my treat. I sat there staring at the screen, grinning. Ellie hadn't just detonated her own life. She'd triggered a chain reaction. I replied, coffee sounds great. Data geeks need to stick together. Ellie, meanwhile, kept trying. Flowers at the door. Handwritten notes. One desperate 2 a.m. text. Please, can we just erase the past and start over? I almost replied with a screenshot of her ring data, but I restrained myself. Sometimes the best revenge is the silence that follows. There's a particular kind of satisfaction in watching a liar squirm, not out of cruelty, mind you, but out of justice. For every chart, for every smug text, for every client sync excuse, the universe was now serving Ellie a slice of humble pie. And I was more than happy to let her eat it. The week after the retreat was one long exercise in controlled detachment. Greg filed the divorce papers Monday. Ellie received them by courier Tuesday morning. She called me 14 times in 2 hours. I let each call ring out. By Wednesday, she tried a different tactic, contrition. A text popped up while I was coding. Please. I need to explain. Let me show you I can change. I almost laughed. Change? The same woman who spent months micromanaging her ring's readiness score while cheating under my nose? No amount of sleep optimization was going to fix this. Meanwhile, the corporate fallout had begun. Laura kept me updated. Bless her. HR was in meltdown mode. Apparently, several staff had already threatened to leak the whole mess to Business Insider or worse. The PR team was scrambling to keep a lid on it. Jeff resigned. To spend more time with family, the official line said. The irony was rich. Ellie, on leave, had been asked not to attend any upcoming public events. Rumor was the board was considering cutting her loose altogether, too much brand risk. I did feel a twinge of guilt then. Not enough to stop. Just a flicker. Friday afternoon, Greg called. Got an interesting one for you, he said. He forwarded me an email chain between Ellie's lawyer and HR. Apparently, Ellie was attempting to claim emotional duress and blame the incident on me. Greg's reply was art. Our client merely presented public, verifiable data. Any emotional duress stems from Ms. last name, S own actions and choices. Boom. But the best was yet to come. That weekend, Laura and I met for coffee. I half expected it to be awkward. It wasn't. She slid into the booth, ordered a black coffee, and said, well, that was one hell of a presentation. I chuckled. Figured the data would speak louder than I ever could. She smiled wryly. You're wasted in software. You should run comms. We swapped war stories for an hour. Turns out Jeff had been playing this game for years, not just with Ellie. Laura had suspected but lacked hard proof. Your charts, she said, were gold. I sent them straight to my lawyer. I raised my cup. To data integrity. We clinked mugs. By the next week, my life had settled into an eerie calm. The loft felt lighter. Work came easier. I even started running again, not for heart rate data, but for the sheer joy of motion. Ellie, however, wasn't done. That Thursday, I came home to find her sitting on the hallway floor, bags beside her. She looked up, eyes red. I just needed to see you. I sighed. Ellie, this isn't helping. She stood, shaky. I've lost everything. The job. Jeff. The apartment. You're the only one who. I held up a hand. Stop. I'm not your emotional support animal. Actions have consequences. She reached out. I stepped back. I made one mistake, she cried. I tilted my head. Ellie, you made a project plan for that mistake. Multiple hotel bookings. Synced calendars. Scheduled rides. That's not a mistake. That's a second job. She crumpled. Sat back down, sobbing. I called her a cab. helped her to it without a word, watched it drive off. That night, Laura messaged me again. Apparently, one of her friends at Ellie's company had leaked a memo. Ellie was officially terminated. No severance. I won't lie, I poured a damn good scotch that night. But the real twist came the next morning. A letter. Hand-delivered. Thick, cream envelope. Ellie's handwriting. Inside, a 5-page plea. Apologies. Promises. Claims of clarity. In one line that chilled me. If you won't take me back, I'll tell everyone you doctored the data. I stared at the words. Blinked. Read them again. It was a bluff, of course. The data was unaltered, time-stamped, corroborated, cross-referenced. But the fact she'd stooped to that? I called Greg. Forwarded the letter. Let her try, he said. We've got the audit trail. If she goes public, we countersue for defamation. Perfect, I said. But let's do one better. Greg chuckled. I like where this is going. I spent the next day compiling a full report, screenshots, logs, metadata. Bulletproof. We prepped it for court, yes, but also for wider eyes. Then I called in a favor from an old contact in tech journalism. Someone who loved a juicy workplace ethics story. Off the record, I told him. But if this goes public, here's the real data. He laughed. If she tries anything, I'll make sure the truth hits the front page. Ellie had played her last card and lost. I leaned back, savoring the moment. No yelling. No drama. Just cold, hard data. And I wasn't done yet. The thing about chess, real chess, isn't about who can move faster. It's about who can think 10 moves ahead while their opponent is busy knocking over the pieces. Ellie thought she was playing chess. She was playing checkers. The letter she'd sent me, that veiled little threat about doctoring the data, was her Hail Mary. I knew it. Greg knew it. Laura knew it. And more importantly, the folks at Ellie's former company were starting to figure it out too. Apparently, HR had caught wind of her bluff, not from me, but from a junior marketing staffer who overheard Ellie ranting on a call about exposing me and turning the story around. Cute. I got the call from my contact late Friday. She's trying to spin it, he said. Claiming you hacked her devices, manipulated the ring data. I nearly spit out my drink. She really thinks that'll fly? No one's buying it, he replied. But PR's worried enough that they're prepping a full transparency statement just in case. I smiled. Good. Let them. They'll have my report to back it. Meanwhile, Greg and I finalized the legal side. By Saturday morning, we'd filed for a protective order, preemptively blocking Ellie from making public claims without proof. Why? Because in this game, offense is your best defense. Predictably, Sunday afternoon brought another Ellie sighting. I was at the loft packing up more of her stuff for courier delivery when there was a knock. Ellie. Again. She looked worse this time, thinner, pale, mascara smudged like a teenager after prom. I need to talk, she stammered. I sighed. Ellie, unless this is about signing those papers, we're done. No, you don't understand, she pleaded. They're going to release a statement. They'll make it look like I was a victim. I folded my arms. You mean the story where I somehow hacked a multi-billion-dollar fitness platform and 3 corporate servers to frame you? She swallowed. I didn't think they'd take it seriously. I arched an eyebrow. So you did say it. She broke down, sliding to the floor, sobbing. I lost everything. I thought if I could shift the blame. You thought you could lie your way out of a digital trail, I said flatly. You're not the first. You won't be the last. But you will be one of the dumbest. She gasped. How can you be so cold? I looked her dead in the eye. Because cold is all you left me with. I closed the door. Greg's text came in moments later. Just got a ping from the reporter. They're ready to run the real story if she pushes. I texted back. Good. Let her move first. We counterpunch. And sure enough, she did. Monday morning, an anonymous source leaked a vague post on one of those corporate gossip forums. The headline, VP resigned after data manipulation allegations from spouse. Nice try. But they forgot one thing, metadata. See, in the age of digital journalism, most of these leaks pass through multiple servers. And thanks to my reporter friend, we had a copy of the original leak, timestamped, geotagged. Guess whose IP it traced back to? Ellie's friend. One of her old marketing cronies. The trap was closing. We compiled everything server logs, the original ring data, cross-referenced with independent audit reports from the fitness platform itself. Yes, I pulled that favor too. Ironclad. By Wednesday, my reporter friend dropped the bomb. Exclusive. The wearable data scandal that wasn't How one executive tried to spin a cheating scandal into corporate espionage. Front page. Screenshots. Charts. Full timeline. Even quotes from anonymous employees confirming the truth. Ellie's bluff was dead on arrival. My phone lit up. Laura texted first. Nailed it. Couldn't have written it better myself. Then Greg. Congrats. Checkmate. And finally, the one I didn't expect. Ellie. A single text. You've destroyed me. I stared at it for a moment. No joy. No gloating. Just a quiet finality. I didn't reply. Later that night, I met Laura again. Coffee turned into wine. We laughed about the absurdity of it all. You really pulled it off, she said, raising her glass. I clinked mine. Data doesn't lie. And as we sat there, the city lights flickering outside, I realized something. In a world where every heartbeat is tracked, every mile logged, and every calendar synced, lying is obsolete. Ellie had tried to play an old game in a new world. She lost. And me? I was just getting started. Revenge isn't supposed to feel good. That's what people say, anyway. That it leaves you hollow. That it's a poison you drink yourself. I wouldn't know. For me, it felt like symmetry. The balance restored. A data audit on life's little betrayals. After the article dropped, the fallout was swift and brutal. Ellie was radioactive. No company wanted to touch her. HR departments whispered. Recruiters ghosted her. The startup world is smaller when your ex-husband happens to know half the cybersecurity circles they rely on. Within a week, the gossip sites moved on. But the damage stuck. Her LinkedIn was a wasteland. No updates. No new roles. Meanwhile, Laura finalized her own divorce. She and I stayed in touch. Casual coffee turned into occasional dinners. Not a romance. Just two people who'd stared down the same ugly truth and survived. As for me, the loft never felt more peaceful. I cleared out the last of Ellie's things. Boxed up the yoga mats, the aromatherapy diffusers, the overpriced fitness gadgets. The smart ring? I kept it as a trophy. Weeks passed. The divorce finalized quietly. Clean split. Minimal drama, Greg made sure of that. But then came the final twist. The one even I didn't see coming. It started with an invite. Laura sent it. Want to come to the company charity gala? Should be. Interesting. I almost said no. But curiosity won. The gala was black tie, held at a downtown art museum. Polished floors, wine fountains, the whole corporate virtue signaling circus. I arrived fashionably late. Laura waved me over. Guess who RSVP'd last minute, she whispered. I scanned the room. There. Near the back. Ellie. Looking thinner, older somehow. Hair overstyled, smile brittle. Clutching a glass of champagne like a life raft. And next to her, not Jeff. Some younger exec. Nervous, fidgety. Clearly a rebound project. Laura smirked. Word is, she begged for a ticket. Trying to rehab her image. I chuckled. Old habits. The night rolled on. Speeches. Auctions. Awkward mingling. Then the moment. During the final address, the company's new CMO took the stage, a woman I vaguely knew through Laura. She smiled, clicked the remote. Behind her, the screen lit up. Our commitment to transparency, lessons from the past year. A beat. Then the first slide, the data that speaks. Laura grabbed my arm, grinning. Oh, they're going there. And they did. Without naming names, the CMO walked through a polished, corporate-safe version of the scandal. Wearable data. Integrity breaches. The importance of ethics in a digital world. Each slide a surgical strike. At one point, a familiar chart flashed on screen, anonymized, but unmistakable to anyone who'd seen the original article. Heart rate spikes. Calendar overlays. The infamous 2 to 3 a.m. windows. I glanced at Ellie. She was frozen, white-knuckling her glass. Her new date whispering urgently in her ear. And then came the kicker. The CMO smiled. We're proud to say we've partnered with leading cybersecurity experts to ensure our data remains a tool for truth, not deception. She gestured to the audience. And tonight, we'd like to acknowledge one individual whose commitment to transparency helped catalyze this change. A spotlight swung. Onto me. Polite applause rippled through the room. Cameras clicked. Laura squeezed my shoulder, laughing. I kept my face neutral. Nodded once. Ellie bolted from her table, nearly tripping her date in the process. I watched her go, expressionless. Later, as the gala wound down, Laura and I lingered by the bar. She's finished, Laura said softly. I sipped my drink. She was finished the moment she thought she could outmaneuver her own data. Laura tilted her head. You're colder than I thought. I smiled faintly. Not cold. Just calibrated. She laughed. Well, calibration suits you. As we left, I felt no triumph. No joy. Just clarity. The truth had been served, elegantly, publicly, without a single raised voice. And in a world where every heartbeat leaves a trace, the lesson was simple. Lie all you want. The data will tell the truth. I stepped into the night air. Crisp. Quiet. And walked away, the ring in my pocket, the past behind me, and every move ahead mapped with precision. Subscribe to the channel